next topic is all about existential psychology. So, when you hear the word existential, what comes into your mind? And naisip nyo ba kung sino yung proponent and how did that proponent come up with this kind of concept? So, para mas maintindihan natin, let us further discuss the overview of the existential psychology. So, actually, shortly after World War II, a new psychology or the existential psychology began to spread in Europe and US. And this existential psychology has rooted with the philosophy of different philosophers. So, sino ba yung mga philosophers na yon? So, nandito sina Soren Kierkegaard, Martin Heidegger, John Paul Sartre, and many more European philosophers. And the first existential psychologists and psychiatrists were also Europeans. And this includes Ludwig Binswanger, Viktor Frankl, and many more European psychologists and psychiatrists. So, nearly 50 years ago, Phralami was responsible of introducing the existentialist idea on the United States. Or simply, he became the spokesperson of the existential psychology in United States. And during his years as psychotherapist, he was able to evolve a new way of looking on human beings. So, yung approach na ginamit niya, it is not based on controlled scientific research. It is based on his clinical experiences. As I had mentioned, he was a psychotherapist, and with that, he was able to see or to view human beings as a living in this world with so much experiences, and they are actually responsible, or they are ultimately responsible of who would they become. And pinaniwalaan ni Phralami na unhealthy people, ito yung mga tao na lack of courage na harapin yung destiny nila. And ang ginagawa nila, pinipili nilang takasan na lang yung destiny na yon. And with that case, parang nawawalan sila ng pagkakataon to develop kung sino ba sila. And in contrary naman dun sa healthy people, gusto nila yung china-challenge yung destiny nila. Gusto nilang harapin yung destiny na yun kasi they are aware of death. And they are aware that death is inevitable. And they want to live their life to the fullest, especially at their present life. And that actually is the beginning of the existential psychology. So the next slide contains the biography of Phralami. So as I have mentioned earlier, Phralami was a 20th century psychologist who actually contributed on the development and popularity of the existential psychology. He was actually born April 21, 1901 in Ada, Ohio. Well, I can say that Phralami did not experience a happy childhood life wherein his parents divorced and yung kapatid niyang babae is nagsuffer from psychotic breakdown. But then, luckily, nagkaroon pa rin siya ng pagkakataon to pursue his study. He became an itinerant artist. He received his Master of Divinity degree. He became a pastor, and he pursued his career, especially in psychology. And he also tried to become a professor on different universities. But then there comes the times na habang nag-aaral siya on his doctorate degree, he suffered from illness, wherein this illness was known as tuberculosis, and then he's in need to spent his 3 years of life in a sanatorium. A sanatorium is a medical facility wherein dito nagkakaroon ng treatment, especially sa mga nagkakaroon ng long-term treatment for those for the disease, especially the tuberculosis. And then this experience became his turning point, wherein para sa kanya nandito yung time na kinaharap niya yung may possibility na kaharapin niya na yung death. And then ang ginawa niya, he spent his times reading the literature of Soren Kierkegaard, wherein it inspires him a lot. And then yung trauma sa experience na yon, nag-come up siya sa pagkabuo ng he came up with the existential philosophy. Kasi nga parang yung literature na nababasa niya, it is matched with what he is believing, or with what he believed. And then and parang naniniwala siya na despite the fact na meron siyang sakit, he's still able to survive. And that belief is yung belief na yon nagmatch dun sa literature na nabasa niya nagawa ni Soren Kierkegaard. And we all know that Soren Kierkegaard is the one who inspired the existential movement. And then later on, Phralami died because of the congestive heart failure in 1994 at the age of 84. So, yan kung kanina pinag-usapan natin yung overview of Existential Psychology, Biography of Phralami. Ngayon, pumunta naman tayo sa background of Existentialism. So, sino ba yung tao na nagkaroon ng major influence on the Existentialism? So, we have Soren Kierkegaard. He was a Danish philosopher and theologian. He is actually concerned with the increasing trend in post-industrial societies towards the dehumanization of people. And also, he opposed any attempt to see people merely as objects, but at the same time, he opposed the view that subjective perceptions are one's only reality. And yun nga yun, kasi parang he opposed that attempt na kapag halimbawa ako, I can see an individual as an object. Parang itong taong to, he's just an object. And he opposed that attempt. Then, on the other side, the subjective perception, he also opposed the subjective perception on one's reality. Kasi nga naman, that opinion, or subjective, meaning to say it is opinion, it is based on your own perspective. It is your own perspective. Hindi mo masasabi na it is one's reality. Kunwari, nagsabi ako na ito, I cannot say that it is one's own reality. And then instead, he was concerned with both experiencing person and the experience, or the person's experience. Kumbaga, concerned siya sa experience ng tao at sa mismong tao na nakaka-experience ng kanong klaseng sitwasyon. Kumbaga, para sa kanya, these two are intertwined. Kumbaga, you do experience a situation, and that experience is also important. And later on, Kierkegaard, like other existentialists, Kierkegaard emphasized a balance between freedom and responsibility. Kumbaga, people acquire freedom by means of expanding their awareness and the by means of assuming responsibility for their actions. And it is also he also believed that freedom and responsibility can only be achieved at the expense of anxiety. Kumbaga, kapag ang isang tao na-realize niya na siya lang, or he is in charge on his own destiny, doon niya mai-experience, doon niya maiintindihan yung hirap or the burden of freedom and responsibility. Kumbaga, malaya ka, but there are also burden. And that freedom is always attached to responsibility. Kumbaga, there is a freedom, and then there is responsibility at the same time. And then later on, yung that view of Soren Kierkegaard has little effect on the philosophical perspective nung time niya. And then there are two Germans who helped in popularizing the existential psychology. They are Martin Heidegger and Friedrich Nietzsche. And up until parang nag-continue yon, nagtuloy-tuloy yung pagpapopularize ng existential psychology hanggang sa maipakilala na ni Rollo May yung existential psychology in the United States. Okay, let us now proceed with the existentialism. What is existentialism? So there are actually philosophers, psychologists who gave their interpretations about the existentialism in different ways. And some common elements are actually found on existential thinkers. So the first one is existence takes precedence over essence. So this is actually telling us the idea na we human beings or every individual is responsible for their actions because they choose who will they become. Kumbaga, tayong mga tao, malaya tayong piliin kung anong klaseng buhay yung tatahakin natin, and our passion drives us. So the next one is existentialism opposes the split between subject and object. Kumbaga, humans are more than those objects. We are more than subjective thinking living beings because we are both subjective and objective, because we are searching yung totoong we are searching the true meaning of life, the true meaning of living, and we do deal with experiencing an authentic life. So the next, people search for some meaning to their lives. Kasi nga, tayong mga tao, nagtatanong tayo, there are big questions na gusto nating masagot. Kumbaga, yung tanong na yun, sino nga ba ako? Or, ano nga ba yung purpose ko? Ano yung reason why do I exist? And meron ba akong mission? Nagigets niyo yan? Yung, kumbaga, you are asking questions about yourself, about the lives that you will be dealing with. Next, existentialists hold that ultimately each of us is responsible for who we are and what we become. Kumbaga, tayo lang yung responsable sa mga actions natin. We are responsible of who we are or who will be, kung magiging sino tayo. And hindi tayo pwedeng manisi ng ibang tao. Halimbawa, hindi mo pwedeng sisihin yung teacher mo, your friends, your family, and hindi mo rin pwedeng sisihin yung circumstances. And even God, hindi mo siya pwedeng sisihin kasi ikaw mismo sa sarili mo, ikaw lang ang responsable for every actions that you will take. Ikaw yung responsable at wala ng iba. And next, existentialists are basically anti-theoretical. Kasi, para sa mga existentialist, theorists dehumanize people. Kumbaga, they render people as objects. Kumbaga, naniniwala sila na authenticity is the key, wherein people strive hard para magkaroon or para mag-create ng authentic life, para maranasan nila kung ano ba yung tunay na buhay. Yan. Next, we have the basic concepts of existentialism. Meron tayong dalawa. So, ang una is the being in the world. So, the basic unity of person and environment is expressed in the German word the same, meaning to exist there. Ibig sabihin, being in the world is it talks about the person and the person and the environment rather. Kumbaga, these two are attached to each other. Kumbaga, hindi sila pwedeng paghiwalayin. Kasi, kung may nag-i-exist, meron ding lugar kung saan siya nag-i-exist. And this the concept of being in the world emphasizes the human existence. Kumbaga, ini-emphasize nun yung kabuluhan ng buhay ng isang tao at kung ano yung kahulugan ng buhay niya. Kasi an individual has a unique destiny na kailangan niyang i-fulfill sa environment niya or sa mundo. Kasi nga, kaya siya nag-exist kasi meron siyang unique destiny na kailangan ma-fulfill. So, meron tayo ngayong 3 modes of being in the world. Kumbaga, ito yung nararanasan natin sa mundo as we exist. Yung una, yung wealth. Kumbaga, dito sa wealth, ito yung tinutukoy nito yung mismong environment natin kung saan tayo nabibilang. This is the world where we exist. Then meron din tayong myth wealth wherein it talks about the relationship of a person with another person. Kumbaga, relationship with other people. And then we also have the eigen wealth, which is the relationship of an individual with oneself. Kumbaga, it is an individual's relationship with oneself or with one's own world. Then the next one is the concept of non-being. Kumbaga, it is the nothingness like death. Kumbaga, it is the death that an individual may experience as they exist. Kumbaga, we are aware that that death is inevitable, diba? Kumbaga, tayong mga tao, haharapin natin yung death. And minsan nga, natatakot tayo kasi pag sinabing death, parang takot kang harapin kasi takot kang mamatay, diba? And death is inevitable and kailangan mo yung harapin. Now, let's move on with Phralami's concept of anxiety. So, kung matatandaan ninyo, binanggit ko doon sa biography ni Phralami na nagkaroon siya ng sakit during his years of doctorate. And yung sakit na yon is tuberculosis, and he needed to spend his 3 years of life doon sa sanatorium, which is a medical facility. And with that, nag-come up siya doon sa idea of creating the book which is entitled The Meaning of Anxiety. Kumbaga, binigyan niya ng pakahulugan yung anxiety na yon. And he actually claimed na the human behavior is motivated by the sense of dread and anxiety. And ang sabi ni Phralami, yung death na cause ng anxiety, pwede tayong makascape doon, but only temporary. Kasi nga, death, hindi mo yun mapipigilan. Kumbaga, sooner or later, kakaharapin mo siya. Hindi mo pwedeng pigilan, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, stop, hindi ako mamamatay. Kasi nga, death is not temporary, or death is not, or it is inescapable. No one can escape from death. Kasi lahat tayo mapupunta doon. Lahat tayo kakaharapin yung death. So, doon, and kaya niya sinabi na anxiety is the subjective state of individuals becoming aware that his or her existence can be destroyed, that he can become nothing. Kasi nga alam niya na death, alam niya yung death, alam niya na darating din ang araw na kakaharapin niya yung death. And it is also a threat to some important value. Kasi nga, ano ba yung binibigyan mo ng halaga? Di ba yung buhay mo? Pero pag nalaman mo na merong death, makaka-apekto yun sa'yo. Matatakot ka, magkakaroon ka ng anxiety. And then, yung anxiety exists when one confronts the issue of fulfilling one's potentialities. Yun din, isa ding issue yun. Kasi nga, kapag nag-fail ka to fulfill your own potentialities, magkakaroon din yun ng anxiety. So, meron tayong dalawang uri ng anxiety. So, we have the normal anxiety and the neurotic anxiety. Yung normal anxiety, this is the anxiety that you can able to manage, confront. For example, ikaw, as a student, meron kang quiz kinabukasan. And you suddenly feel na parang natatakot ka, kinakabahan ka, kasi parang iniisip mo na baka mag-fail ka doon. But, that anxiety in you is pwede mong i-manage, pwede mong harapin. Pwede kang gumawa ng way on how to overcome that anxiety. And that is an example of normal anxiety. Well, on contrary, meron tayong neurotic anxiety, which is hindi mo siya kayang i-manage, hindi mo siya kayang i-confront kasi nga it is you have the inability to cope with that threat that is subjective rather than objective. Kumbaga, sa sarili mo lang ikaw yung parang sa sarili mo lang opinion, sa sarili mo lang feeling. Kaya parang hindi mo siya kayang i-overcome, and that is a neurotic. We have the guilt. So, guilt arises when people deny their potentialities, fail to accurately perceive the needs of fellow humans, or remain oblivious to their dependence on the natural world. So, this guilt is associated with the three modes of being in the world. So, yung una, sa world, if an individual is not aware of being in the world, yung guilt, it arises. And minsan, nagkukos yun ng separation of an individual from the nature. And we also have the myth, yung relationship with other people. Minsan kasi, an individual, or we human beings, can see other people with our own eyes, but we cannot perfectly and accurately judge them. And yung sa eigenwelt, which is yung relationship to oneself, minsan we deny our potentialities kasi we tend to fail. Kasi we cannot completely fulfill our potentialities. Kaya doon nangyayari, or doon yun yung nagiging reason why guilt arises.
Okay, next naman natin, intentionality. Intentionality is the ability to make decision that decision is based on the underlying structure. The structure that gives meaning to experience and allows people to make decisions about the future. So, ginamit ni Rollo May yung term na intentionality para magkaroon ng bridge, yung gap between subject and object. Hindi lang siya pang mga philosophical concepts, but intentionality, ito yung to act with purpose. To act with purpose of your intention. Ganun. Okay, so next na po tayo, we have the care, love, and will. So, according to me, to care for someone, ibig sabihin, nire-recognize mo yung taong yun as a human being, as an individual, kung ano ba yung nararamdaman niya, kung masaya ba siya, o galit ba siya, o kung ano man yung nararamdaman ng taong yun, nagpe-pay attention ka sa kanya, nagki-care ka, or may pakialam ka, yung Tagalog nga, di ba? So, according to me, ang care daw is a state in which something does matter. Care is not the same as love, but it is the source of love. To love means to care, to recognize the essential humanity of other person. Yun nga, parang, di ba, sa care kasi doon na rin unti-unting nade-develop yung love yung love natin sa mga tao na nakapaligid sa atin. Of course, if you love that person, you care also for that person. So, according to me, love daw is a delight in the presence of the other person and an affirming of that person's value and development as much as one's own. So, siguro naman naiintindihan na natin lahat yun. We all have different definition naman kung ano yung love. And according to me, ito nga daw yung binavalue natin yung isang tao. Ibig sabihin, nag-care tayo sa kanya, binavalue natin siya, pinapalagan natin, and yun. Next naman natin is yung will. So, according to me, will is the capacity to organize oneself so that movement in a certain direction toward a certain goal may take place. So, dito parang parang dinidistinguish ni May kung ano ba yung pag pinagkaiba ng will at saka ng wish. Kasi 'di ba kapag will, you are determined to do that thing. Parang gusto mo talagang gawin 'yun. Kapag wish kasi, parang ini-imagine lang natin parang ay sana ganito, sana kayanin ko, instead ng ay kakayanin ko. Ganun yung pinagkaiba. Dinidistinguish na yun. Kapag kasi will, you have, nagre-require siya ng ng self-consciousness. Sabi ni ang will daw nagre-require ng self-consciousness, which is true naman. And then yung wish kasi hindi, kasi nga parang ini-imagine mo lang siya ganun. So yeah. So next na tayo, we have the union of love and will may claim that modern society is suffering from an unhealthy division of love and will. Love has become associated with sensual love or sex, whereas will has come to mean a Dutch determination or willpower. Neither the concept captures the true meaning of these two terms. So, sabi ni May, ang task daw nila dito is to unite love and will. Kasi nga, diba, when love is seen as sex, na siya, nagiging there is no commitment, puro manipulation na lang. And then, when will is seen as will, nagiging self-serving na siya at saka kulang na sa passion. Kasi sabi nga dito, meron daw mga biological reasons why love and will are separated. When children first came into the world, they are at one with the universe, their mother and themselves. Our needs are met without self-conscious effort on our part as a biologically in the early condition of nursing as the mother's breast. This is the first freedom, the first yes. And then first freedom, first yes. And then later on, as will begins to develop, it manifests itself as opposition. The first no in early infancy is now opposed by the emerging willfulness of late infancy. The no should be seen. Sinasabi dito ni Mina yung no daw should be seen as a statement against the parents. It should not be seen as statement against the parents, but rather as a positive assertion of self. Parents often interpret the no negatively, and therefore yung child nagkakaroon ng sa child self-assertion. As a result nga, children learn to dissociate will from the blissful love they had previously enjoyed. Kaya, yun yung sinasabi na, daw, yung dalawang yun daw, sinasabi ni Mina, both of them should unite together. Hindi, sabi ni Mina, hindi naging easy yung Neurotic, hindi naging madali. Pero posible daw na ma-unite yung love and will if parehong mature yung person at they have both love and will, mean reaching out toward another person, but also both involves love and care, and both imply actions, and both require responsibility. Okay, next na tayo. Forms of love. May identified 4 kinds of love in Western tradition. Yung sex, eros, philia, and agape. So, sex is a biological function that can be satisfied through sexual intercourse or some other release of sexual tension. May noted that society has progressed from a time when having sex was associated with shame and anxiety, to a time when not having it was associated with anxiety and shame, guilt naman. And then yung eros naman daw is a psychological desire that seeks procreation or creation through an enduring union with a loved one. So, ito parang nako-confuse sila dito sa United States. Nako-confuse sila sa sex and eros. Kasi nga yung sex is a physiological need that seeks gratification. So, eros is based on sensitivity and care. It aspires to form a long-term relationship. Next is philia. Yung philia naman is an intimate non-sexual friendship between two people. Philia cannot be rushed. It takes time to grow, to develop, to sink its roots. Example dito ni Rolome would be the slowly evolving love between friendship or siblings. And yun nga, mga friends. Ganun. And then, yung agape naman is, just eros depends on philia. Yung philia naman needs also agape. Sabi, dinefine niya to as, esteem for the other, the concern for the other's welfare beyond any gain that one can get out of it. Disinterested love, typically the love of God for men. Agape is a kind of love that is selfless. Sinasabi niya dito na yung dito is a type of love that is selfless, and it's a type of spiritual love that comes with a price of pretending to be God. It is independent of the other person's actions or features. It is undeserved and unconditional in this way. So, parang yung summarize lang nito, parang sinasabi niya lang na, in summary, healthy adult relationships, yung mga healthy adult relationships daw, ay may apat na blend ng, meron silang apat na blend or ng way of love, for yun nga, yung mga batay sila sa mga sexual satisfaction, at saka yung mga pagnanais na mapatibay pa yung yung relationships para maging mas genuine, at saka para mas maging genuine, may malasakit, ganon. Yun yung sinasabi ni May dito eh. And lastly, sinabi niya dito na at the same time, di ba kasi nga yung love, of course, hindi naman yan madali. Hindi din siya madali kasi marami ring mga sacrifices, at saka minsan hindi talaga authentic yung pinapakita ng iba sa atin, ganun. Nagre-require siya ng ng self-affirmation at saka ng assertion. So sabi ni May, at the same time, it requires tenderness, affirmation of the other, relaxing of competition as much as possible, self-abnegation at times in the interest of the loved one, and the age-old virtues of mercy and forgiveness. Ayun, so patapos na rin tayo, no? Pero konti na lang. Ito, dito muna po tayo, freedom and destiny. A combination of the four types of love includes both self-affirmation and affirmation of the other. It also needs assertion of one's independence and the confrontation with one's fate. Yung mga individuals na mga malulusog, or individuals that are in good health, they are more capable on handling their freedom. Of course, kasi sila hawak nila yung kakayahan nila, yung faith nila. They can do everything they want. Unlike sa mga tao na may sakit, hindi nila alam kung hanggang kailan or hanggang saan lang yung kanilang yung kanilang destiny. So dito, ayon kay Rolome, yung word na determine is in this definition is a synonym with what May would later call destiny. Called destiny. Yung freedom then comes from an understanding of our destiny, an understanding that death is a possibility at any moment, no? Walang walang makakapigil. Lahat tayo papunta talaga doon. Babae ka man or lalaki. Yan yung isa sa mga bagay na hindi natin maiiwasan, at kapag dumating, wala na talaga tayong magagawa. Mahirap man, pero darating at darating talaga sa puntong pupunta tayo doon. So, meron tayong forms of freedom. Ito nga yung existential freedom and then the essential freedom. So, yung existential freedom natin should not be identified with existential philosophy. Kasi kapag sinabi natin existential freedom, ito yung freedom of action, yung freedom of doing, yun yung ano niya. And then yung essential freedom naman is siya mas difficult or mas parang mas difficult siya ito basta more difficult siya in terms of freedom, kasi ito yung freedom of non-being, freedom of thinking, freedom of planning. So yun. Okay, so dito na po tayo, last one. Destiny. May define destiny as the design of the universe speaking through the design of each one of us. Our ultimate destiny is death, but on a lesser scale, our destiny includes other biological properties such as intelligence, gender, size, and strength, including also yung mga genetic predisposition natin towards illnesses. In addition, also yung mga psychological and cultural factors na makakapag-contribute sa ating destiny. So, kagaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, lahat tayo talaga papunta rin doon. Lahat ng tao papunta rin doon. Walang makakatakas. We just have to accept that. We just have also to face that pag dumating na yon. But, yung destiny, sabi ni Phralami dito, hindi does not mean preordained or foredoomed. It is our destination, yung goal natin, kung saan ba tayo papunta. Within the boundaries of our destiny, we have the power to choose, and this power allow us to confront and challenge our destiny. It does not permit any change we wish. We cannot be successful any job or conquer any illness, enjoy a fulfilling relationship with any person. We cannot erase our destiny. But, sabi niya dito, ayun nga, diba? Siyempre, Siyempre, hindi naman palaging, successful tayo eh. Diba? Hindi naman palaging yung gusto natin, yun yung napupunta sa atin. Yung, hindi, ito yung para sa akin. Hindi ako papayag, ito yung No, it's not always ganun, right? Sinasabi niya dito na, but we can choose, we have the power to choose kung paano tayo magre-respond doon. We can choose how we shall respond, how we shall live out our talents which confront us. That is according to me. So, nasa sa atin yun kung paano natin i-handle yung mga situation na yun, kung paano natin malalampasan yung mga bagay na yun, para mapunta tayo dun sa gusto natin or sa goal natin. And then, ayun, yun lang naman yung pinaka, ng destiny. We just really have to accept that, kasi lahat naman tayo papunta rin doon talaga. And hindi na yung maiiwasan. Paulit-ulit na lang tayo dito. Pero, ayun nga. Ayun lang naman.